6 years ago, a buddy of mine forced me to play this game that was supposedly a really hard platformer with a rich and dark story. I was skeptical, but after many hours of wanting to bash my head into a wall from falling and being absolutely smothered with this little dude's smoke... Dude, quit vaping in my face, bro, I've got a lung condition. While it's easy to get distracted by the labyrinth of a map, the lore behind Hollow Knight and its newly released sequel, Silksong, is captivating, and I'm gonna prove it to you in this video, where we'll dive or fall deep into the lore of the Hollow Knight series. Hey man, I told you to stop vaping on me. Alright, cut. Can somebody take his jewel away? Let's just get into the story of Hollow Knight. There was not always the kingdom of Hollow Nest. Before it, there were different tribes. Bees, spiders, mushrooms. Anyway, the Moth tribe followed the Old Light. But, obviously at the time they didn't call it the Old Light because this light was the only light they knew, you know? They just called it the Light. This light they worshipped was also known as the Radiance, a great moth god that ruled over them. And we all know how much moths love fucking lamp. But the moths were peaceful and happy. The light shone over Hollow Nest and the moths and bugs felt its warmth. Until one day, a worm came across these bountiful tribes. He finally found a place he could call home, and he planned to make it all his. This worm was far larger than the tiny bugs of Hollow Nest, so he shrunk his form, leaving his cast-off shell in the mountain's edge, becoming the Pale King. The Pale King went to the creatures of Hollow Nest and promised them that Hollow Nest would be eternal. He even had visions that could somewhat see into the future. The bugs of Hollow Nest adored the Pale King and saw him as so great and so powerful, they made him not only their king, but saw him as the creator of everything. They saw him as a god. They began worshipping him, making idols in his image. This Pale King was so bright and powerful that he became known as New Light. Soon, the king was revered by moths and bugs alike, and the Radiance was forgotten by its people. But what god would let a mortal take its place? The Radiance would not let itself be completely forgotten. It began delving into the dreams of the moths and bugs of Hollow Nest through the subconscious memories. These dreams consumed the bugs, and from it, the infection sprung to life. It's unclear to me whether the infection was intentional or accidental. It's my theory that it was intentional, sort of a if I can't have them, no one can type of thing. The infection turned the bugs from sentient beings to monsters, mindless creatures wandering the place they once called home, reanimated shells of bugs, basically zombies. As the infection spread, the Pale King tried to find a solution or a cure for the plague that was destroying his kingdom. He tasked his Soul Master to find an ideal solution, but none could be found. The Soul Master believed that by using harvested souls from bugs, he could cleanse the infected ones of their ailments. The Pale King told the Soul Master to stop, that what he was doing was wrong, but he persisted. His madness and infection went on to consume him, and the Pale King's hope started to wane. Eventually, he could not control the infected Soul Master any longer, and looked for other solutions to the outbreak. The Pale King came up with the idea of sealing the infection away in a vessel. What is a vessel, you may ask? Vessels are his own children, born from the soul of himself and the White Lady. These children were made in order to find the perfect container to entrap the infection, but the ones with impurities were discarded. They were born in a place called the Abyss, with a void inside them, a limitless expanse perfect for hosting a limitless infection. Once they found the perfect vessel, they needed to contain it with 3 seals known as the Dreamers. They thought this vessel was going to be the right one for the job, but unfortunately, they couldn't be more wrong. Their chosen vessel could not last an eternity. The infection that was once put to sleep began slipping out again. Mysteriously, the Pale King and his White Palace disappeared from thin air. The infection spread, and the light, new and old, were slowly forgotten with time. And that is where you come in. When beginning this journey, you start out with nothing. Who are you? What is it drawing you to this village and the forgotten ancient civilization beneath it? With only a nail in hand and a thirst for knowledge, and possibly wealth, you descend into the forgotten kingdom of Hollow Nest. You meet bugs of all different shapes, sizes, and walks of life, and slowly you piece together the backstory of what happened so long ago. One of the first bugs you meet, Quirrell, is found in the Temple of the Black Egg, and his head almost looks like... nah, that's probably coincidence. The deeper you go into the civilization, the stronger you will become. In your travels, you'll find a fellow warrior, Hornet, who who wasn't as friendly as one might expect from her appearance. She says you've been stalking her, and that there's something awakening in the air, and that she knows what you are and what you do, how she can't allow it.
Oh no! I thought she was good!
You fight, and when you finally win, Hornet Spider-Man webs her ass out of there, leaving you in a broken night on the ground, alone. Further in, you meet Quirrell again, showing off that weird-looking hat. He mentions that the building you're in seems like the remains of a temple long forgotten with how overgrown it is. Perhaps a certain moth temple? I mean, just look at the light beaming from the ceiling in the lake of acid, screams Moth. Oh, and the literal moth guard waiting there for you to kick his ass. In one of the worst zones imaginable, the Crystal Peak, you must avoid the fucking shards being thrown at your ass every 2 seconds and the turntable-ass platforms. Seriously, who made this? You walk into a room, seeing a pit in front of you, but you also see a possible civilization across the way. If you acquired your dash, you might think, no problem, I can probably make that. You're wrong. You fall deep down into a graveyard. Gravestones litter the ground, and that's when you see it. The markings from the black egg resting on their own gravestones. Light traps you. These are memorial graves for the dreamers. Their bodies do not lie here, but around Hollownest and beyond. They speak to you, telling you that you must not interfere with them. The seal must not be broken, as it is their duty. They won't allow you to break them. They banish you, little shadow, into the light. You awaken in a dreamlike state, alone, until a moth of light appears, leading you to something. You meet at a statue of a moth, and the light moth tells you that the dreamers trapped you between body and soul. The only options are to fade into this dream or to wield the dream nail, releasing yourself from its bounds. Unbeknownst to you, this is the Radiance, giving you the weapon to set it free. Next thing you know it, you wake up in the dreamy tent of a moth called the Seer. They tell you that by wielding this dream nail, you can now enter the sleep of these dreamers and release them from their slumber. It's time to wake the dreamers and break their seals. As you delve further into Hollownest, you'll find the City of Tears, a city of unending rain. Solemn yet hopeful. The beautiful rain. Wait, how's it raining down here? Cave juice or something? Whatever, it's beautiful. Once again, you find Quirrell. This time he's sitting on a bench, looking out the window at the rain pattering against it. He tells you how he feels drawn to the city, but he's hesitant to enter it for some reason. He too questions how the unending rain occurs and wishes to see its source before he leaves the kingdom. You sit together for a moment and ponder what mysteries the city holds. Then onwards you go into the rain and civilization. In one wing of the many towers of the city, you'll find the Soul Sanctum. Remnants of long-lost experiments, souls trapped in bottles, and magical, gooey beasts linger in the halls. You have the option to find and kill the Soul Master, whose infected madness did horrors to bug kind.
Oh my god, no! Ah! Oh my god, what the fuck?
Continuing on your search for the Dreamer, you'll find a tower with 6 Watcher Knights ready to defend their leader. After vanquishing them, you ascend the tallest tower to find a telescope looking down on the city. Tablets of text lay about and paintings of the city are dusted over. Lurien the Watcher rests on his stone bed in eternal sleep, and his infected butler walks solemnly by the body. You murk the butler and enter Lurien's dreams. No boss fight, no resistance. You kill Lurien in his eternal sleep and absorb him. Lurien the Watcher. He's exactly what his name suggests, a watcher, keeping an eye on Hollownest and the City of Tears for the king. Lurien also appears to be the one leaving orders for higher beings only around Hollownest. His love for his king and the kingdom knew no bounds, and when the infection spread and the need for seals and dreamers arose, Lurien volunteered himself for the king. It was his duty, he believed. When Lurien was put to eternal sleep, he wanted the seals to remain eternal. When the vessel began to fail and the infection started once more, he wanted to continue his sleep, though it proved useless towards stopping the plague. While his seal didn't help, he refused to give up. Bonds must remain. 1 dreamer down, 2 more to go. You wander through a land of spikes and webs, always feeling as if something is hiding, watching you. The deep nest surrounds you, and you feel as if you're prey to something much, much larger than yourself. Through the dark confusion, you find a quiet hot spring with your friend Quirrell. He reminds you of how treacherous the place is. Yeah, man, I know. You're preaching to the choir.
No!
And he tells you of how the Deep Nest inhabitants never accepted Hollow Nest's king. This kingdom of creepy crawlies never wanted the Pale King, and yet their queen is a dreamer? What's especially interesting is what your dream nail reveals from his mind. This one too must seek the village at the nest's heart. It shares my path. Interesting. What's he up to? You slowly ascend through this maze of arachnids to the great open spider nest, the distant village. Should you miss your step and end up at the bottom of the pit, you'll meet the midwife, who tells you vaguely of the queen you're soon to meet. The midwife tells you that the queen had to make a tragic exchange, and that few have used the midwife's service in a long while. Also, she keeps trying to eat you. Stop it! Once again, you ascend to the distant village to find a room of normal-looking bugs and, oh look, a bench. Gosh, am I tired. Allow me to sit down and... Hey, wait, I'm stuck. Guys, what is this? What's going on? Stop, no, stay back, stop! Now you might be thinking, with all the hellspawn creatures around and the eerie music, you'd be entering into a great battle with the queen or something. You'd be very, very wrong. You kill a spider, and there, on a stone plinth, lays the queen of Deep Nest, Herrah the Beast. Entering her dreams, you find her alone. She floats above the ground, and you listen to her thoughts with the dream nail. No battle, no struggle. You hit this defenseless queen, and she doesn't lay a finger on you. As you absorb her into yourself, another seal breaks. Herrah the Beast was once a great queen who ruled over her people in peace and darkness on the outskirts of the kingdom of Hollow Nest. She never accepted the king of Hollow Nest as ruler, but when the infection came and the minds of her subjects went, she knew that a sacrifice must be made. The Pale King needed a seal, and she needed someone to run her kingdom. A deal was struck between the rivaling kingdoms. The Pale King would give her a child, the gendered child, and once the child was born, Herrah the Beast would enter eternal sleep. She left her kingdom in the hands of her daughter, the Princess of Deep and Hollow Nests, Hornet. Hornet's the princess? Who could have seen this coming? Oh, hey. If you're liking this video so far, can you do me a favor and click on that little like button down there? It really helps this video get more support, and that means I can make even more Hollow Knight story videos in the future, like for these Silksong DLCs. Thank you so much. Okay. Let's get back to it. Why is this happening? Two dreamers down, one to go. Through bubbles, explosives, and electricity, you make your way through Fog Cloud. You're so close to the final dreamer, you can almost taste... Is that Quirrell? How's this guy beating me everywhere? Hey, buddy. He tells you how familiar it all feels, that he's been drawn to this place, not by his love of adventure, but something else. When you see into his dreams, he wonders who is drawing him in. Enter the teacher's archives. Violent electricity and mindless jellyfish bob their paths into the archives. You find strange texts of code? As you walk through the small establishment and descend into a room of giant jellyfish, Umu appears. Nothing you do can harm it, but luckily your buddy old pal Quirrell steps in to aid you. You defeat it with the power of friendship and find a vial holding a jellyfish creature. But this doesn't look like the lady I saw. Where is her mask? Oh, hey, Quirrell, do you know where her... You've been wearing her fucking mask this whole time? You were her assistant? I thought we were friends, man. What is this? You enter her dreams, the only dreamer who wanted the seals to be broken. She doesn't fight back, and she's glad you're freeing her, and you absorb her. Monomon the Teacher was once a great mind and educator for the City of Tears and the Kingdom of Hollow Nest. She was training her apprentice, Quirrell, when the infection first began. She tried to find the cause of the infection, a solution, something, but she couldn't. When her mind failed her, she volunteered her body and dreams to seal the infection away so that her teachings and the bugs of Hollow Nest could live on. She had Quirrell seal her in her vial and gave him her mask to prevent the seal from breaking. However, when the vessel broke and the infection began once more, she knew that the seals that held the vessel wouldn't last, that she would be stuck in this stasis between life and death as the plague slowly absorbed everything. She beckoned for the return of Quirrell. She wanted to be freed, and she wanted you to do it and defeat the infection once and for all. The seals are broken. Before leaving to destroy the Hollow Knight, you can find Quirrell alone by the Blue Lake, the source of the unending rain of the City of Tears. You share one last moment with Quirrell before you never see one another ever again. It's solemn, peaceful. Quirrell's quest is done, but yours has just begun. You return once more to the Temple of the Black Egg. The seals are gone. The egg crackles before you and opens. You enter to find chains, infection, darkness, and the Hollow Knight? But I would have thought I was the Hollow Knight. This was what the Pale King believed was the pure vessel to seal the plague away. But now you must defeat it. Doink! The Hollow Knight falls. You absorb it. You absorb everything. You lay in the egg, eyes aglow, the infection lost in your void. You replace the impure vessel, and you are the Hollow Knight, sealed away for eternity in the Black Egg. But the question still remains, who and what are you? Should you choose not to fight the Hollow Knight immediately, and you venture through the royal waterways or the ancient basin, or climb an elevator shaft into the City of Tears, you will find the Kingdom's Edge. Once again, you come face to face with Hornet, Princess of Hollow and Deep Nests. She asks if you're seeking the deeper truth, and tells you she will not hold back for a weakling. After you kick her ass, you find the king's brand in his old cast-off shell. The shell crumbles on you, but Hornet saves you. Why? You venture to a closed door in the ancient basin, and this time, with the king's brand, it opens. A dark, empty wasteland. The shadows of beings, voids, attack you. You trudge deeper and find a broken black egg. In a cinematic scene, you see the Pale King and another knight walking out of the abyss, the perfect vessel. You fall down and your heart turns void. Those shadows, they are your siblings. The Hollow Knight, your impure sibling, and Hornet, your half-sister. Knowing the truth, you go to the Hollow Knight. Hornet tells you before your battle that she can't join you in the egg, that it was built for void vessels, unlike her, and that should she enter, she would be drained. But she might come to your aid if there's an opening. You face him. He spews infection. You must kill your brother. But who is this? Hornet, your sisters come to your aid. If you fail to strike the knight enough, Hornet passes out in the room while you defeat the Hollow Knight. You are eternally stuck in the egg, and so is Hornet. R.I.P. baby girl, my bad. But let's rewind and say you didn't do this ending. You enter and fight the Hollow Knight. Hornet does end up joining in, giving you an opening to strike the Hollow Knight with your dream nail, and you enter his mind. Here you meet the Radiants face to face. As the battle continues, your Void siblings emerge from the depths. The Hollow Knight aids you in destroying the Radiants. As a family, you defeat the very thing that caused the plague. Back in the real world, Hornet lays on the ground of the egg. She wakes up and finds your skull fractured on the ground. The siblings in the abyss look up to the heavens and finally fall down, finding peace after centuries of torment. Should you find the junk pit at the end of the royal waterways, you might see a mysteriously bright golden sarcophagus. Here lies the Godseeker, a follower of the Radiance. The new light literally flushed the old light down the toilet, and here it rests among trash and treasure. You must enter this Godseeker's dreams to find the Pantheons. In order to get this ending, you must go through 4 Pantheons, each one with a series of mini-bosses that have to have already been defeated in the main game. Then, in the final Pantheon, you fight them all again in order with the Radiance battle at the very end. So if you die in the Radiance battle, you have to start from the very first mini-boss battle and make your way back to the Radiance to try again. If you're unemployed or insane, this is the ending for you. After defeating them all, you're able to defeat the Absolute Radiance, the final form of the Radiance and a tough-ass motherfucker. In this ending, your Void siblings arise during the battle again. They merge together, forming the Absolute Void. Then they trap the Radiance and destroy it. Void Rain falls down on the Pantheon, and the Godseeker looks up in horror as tentacles of void cocoon around it. In the physical world, the void consumes the Godseeker and tentacles of void sprout out ominously from the carcass. Your siblings are free from the abyss and fighting. The infection withers. Hornet stands beside the black egg, and a figure, maybe the impure Hollow Knight, approaches her and she prepares for battle as we cut to black. In order to get to the final ending, you require a delicate flower. In one of the many side quests of the game, you have to deliver a delicate flower by foot, no trams or stagways, and without taking any damage, all the way to a grave. This is extremely time-consuming, but once you complete the quests, more delicate flowers grow from the grave. One thing that helps speed up this painful process is the Grubberfly's Elegy charm, which you can get by saving every single one of these 46 caterpillars from their jars hidden and scattered around Hollow Nest. Aw, look at them. They're so cute. As you might expect, this takes a considerable amount of time, but Grandpa Caterpillar here rewards you with Geo and gifts you for your troubles. Gosh, he must really love and care about these caterpillars to reward you so handsomely. Once the whole family's back together, you get the charm and... Wait, where did all the caterpillars go? What is that noise? Is that... Holy shit, this guy fucking ate all of the caterpillars! Release them, you fiend! No! You're telling me this whole time I thought I was saving these guys? I was actually preparing them to be eaten? What the fuck? Let's move on now. You finally get the flower to the Godseeker, and they seem to like it. But they refuse to like the Hollow Knight, and think we're trying to see its face or get something out of it. Nah man, I was just trying to be nice. This ending mimics the previous ending, Embrace the Void. But when in the physical world, the Godseeker cries the void from its eyes as it holds the delicate flower. Void drips on the petal, and the Godseeker is consumed by the tentacles. But in a flash of light, the void disappears, and the Godseeker and void are nowhere to be seen. The delicate flower rests on the ground of the junk pit. Finally, rest for your void siblings and the Godseeker. The infection dies, and Hornet prepares for battle. Hollow Nest is free from infection. And there you have it. The story of Hollow Knight and all the endings. I do just want to mention that there's so much more content in this game. I seriously recommend that you play the game yourself, as there are so many side characters with their own lore, plot lines, and quests. The feeling of defeating a tough boss after trying over and over again is unmatched and so rewarding.
I fucking did it! Holy shit. Fuck that guy. Oh my god.
But we're not done. We've glazed Hollow Knight enough. Let's get into the story of Silksong. It still feels like I'm in a dream being able to play Silksong since it was delayed for an eternity, but oh man, was it worth the wait. Before we head into it, I wanted to talk a bit about the spider tribe of Deep Nest. You know, the one that Hornet was born into when her mom Herrah made the deal with the Pale King. Part of this spider tribe were some peculiar fellows that migrated to Hollow Nest from a distant land, and are known as the Weavers. These Weavers had their own subsection of Deep Nest, and these were not your average spiders. Aside from the fact that every single one of them were women, they had the ability to weave things with their thread that ordinary spiders couldn't even dream of. This was due to the fact that the thread they created was infused with their soul. You know, that white magical essence we see in game? Well, this essence isn't just a game mechanic. It's actually a force of nature within the world of Hollow Knight, and despite the disdain that most of Deep Nest had towards the Pale King's rule, the Weavers created a lot of the things that he wanted. They wove spells, shields, parchments, and all sorts of things out of their thread. Pretty much all of Hollow Nest's history was written on parchment made by the Weavers themselves, but sometime after the infection broke out, they actually left Hollow Nest and went back to their homeland, which we now know is Farloom, where Silksong actually takes place. So without further ado, let's jump into the game that you've probably been waiting for. We open to a cutscene of Hornet being transported in a cage, sealed by these strange white runes and carried by bugs wearing white hoods. They travel pretty far before this soul bird thing breaks the seal, allowing Hornet to use her powers freely and destroy the bridge they're on, plunging them all into the dark. And welcome to Farloom. You wake up in this peaceful little grassy area next to your cage, and it's time to see what's up. So you climb out of the pit and head towards a place called Bone Bottom, but not before facing your fair share of enemy bugs and the first boss of the game, the Moss Mother. Hornet starts with her bind skill, allowing her to bind her silk onto her wounds to heal herself. After defeating the boss, however, your fatigue catches up to you and you pass out in this ruined chapel. After you had your little nap on this old lady's floor, she taps your head with her stick and two of you chat for a minute. The lady asks Hornet if she's a pilgrim trying to reach the summit of the kingdom, the Citadel. Hornet explains what's going on and says that if the bugs were willing to do all of that to capture her, she wants to find out why. So she's making it her mission to reach the Citadel. The lady suggests maybe she's special somehow. The Kingdom of Farloom has this pilgrim culture. You see, a mass majority of its population believes they're chosen and are guided to climb all the way up to the Citadel. But I wonder what it is that's guiding them. You head off to Bone Bottom and find a little settlement with some pilgrims and a merchant, of course. But let's not forget the new system Silksong introduces. Wishes are, well, exactly what they imply. You can get wishes from the wish boards in settlements or just from talking to certain bugs around the kingdom. But now it's time to officially start your pilgrimage to reach the top of Farloom and its grand citadel. This wouldn't be a Hollow Knight game without its signature NPCs, now would it? Heading around Farloom and exploring its beautiful zones, you run into a few really important characters. The first you meet is probably going to be this short lady banging these chimes together. But whether you meet her first or not, you'll come across Chakra, a woman from a distant land belonging to a warrior tribe. She's a navigator, and she's here to, well, navigate, but also to sell you maps and find her mentor, the greatest of her tribe. Honestly, I don't know who's making these random gibberish songs at Team Cherry, but let's not forget about these adorable little fleas and their caravan. Eventually, you're destined to come across a a bell station? Anyway, whatever you want to call it, you jump into this pit of bells and fight the Bell Beast. Now don't let his violent behavior fool you, because once you defeat him, he's actually the best and cutest doggo in video game history, don't at me. Since you're established in Farloom now, it's time to explore. Once you're out of Bone Bottom, you'll head into places like the Deep Docks, Far Fields, and this annoying fucking place, holy shit. I mean, hey, at least this place has a very strong item you can get pretty early if you manage to find the hidden merchant behind this wall. But anyway, in Far Fields, you come across this lonesome seamstress. If you do her quest, she upgrades your cloak, allowing you to use these huge air bursts to float upwards. You can travel into some new places. But before you leave her house, she stops you for a second. She asks if Hornet knows why the bugs of the Citadel hunt her. And she replies that she thinks it's because of her silk skill, to which the seamstress says she's right. She explains how Hornet's abilities are rare and prized beyond measure in Farloom. The ability to channel one's soul into their thread, with the two becoming inseparable, is a skill almost lost to Farloom, as the weavers that used it are long dead now. She wishes you luck, and the next important ability you find is inside one of these weaver statues you can find across the kingdom that have cryptic writing on them. Each one of these contains a special ability that Hornet can use during her journey in Farloom, and this one is basically a dash and sprint. It seems the Weaver left her gifts, and her coming to Farloom had been rumored for some time. With as many zones as Silksong has, it's pretty easy to get lost in the immersive world, but once you reach the Deep Docks, we meet a couple more characters. This is the Forge Daughter. She and her kind work for the Citadel, but she also helps you out by crafting you tools if you bring her some special metal. Instead of simply having charms like the first game, Silksong sort of has a mix. You've got slots for different kinds of items, the most unique one being your tools. These tools can pretty much be anything. You want to imbue your nail with fire? fire? You can do that. You want to throw some sharp Legos on the floor for the enemies to step on? We got that. Maybe you even want to combine effects and imbue your nail with poisonous fire. Whoa. Anyway, the possibilities seem limitless. Once you move on past the Forge Daughter, though, we meet one of the most important characters in the game. This is Lace, and after rage-baiting the shit out of you, she decides she may as well skewer you now before you suffer from whatever lay at the top of the Citadel. Of course, the two of you fight, but she says nothing after you defeat her. Once you do, you're able to ring one of these giant bells, and as it turns out, it would be the first of many. Since you have your special cloak now, you can head up to Greymoor from the Farfields. This area definitely reminds me of somewhere, but nonetheless, you meet some characters giving you some more insight about the kingdom and what's actually going on here. This is Garmond and his pet Zaza, and he's here on a journey to meet the rulers of the Citadel. One day, a haunted, cursed thread befell his village, and ever since, nothing has been the same. In honor of his enthralled brethren, he's trying to ascend throughout Farloom to reach the Citadel. And if you ask him, he can even help you fight one of the bosses in the zone. Maybe you stop at the inn here and buy yourself a drink, meeting this thing, and if you head to the left of Greymoor, you eventually find yourself surrounded by bells. This town is in the grasp of something sinister, and of course, you'll stop at nothing to save them. At the core of what's going on here is what Hornet thinks to be a weaver, although it has needles jammed into its spine, disabling its powers. Upon meeting Widow, she says some strange things and seems to be speaking to something, a higher being. The people are an offering, a union upon something's thread, a gift for its wake, a world strung to serve. Widow instantly recognizes Hornet as the distant daughter, and the two of you battle. Having to dodge these fucking bells being thrown all over the goddamn room, you beat her and bind her power. As a result, you go through some type of memory or dream, some space between realities, and you hear a song. This is where you discover the Needle-in art, probably one of the most important abilities lore-wise that you'll find in the entire game. With it, you're able to free the curse of Belheart, and it becomes a new settlement. It's got a wishboard, a merchant, a relic collector, and a pinmaster to upgrade your weapon. Yes! To the left of Belheart, you'll find Shellwood, and in it, you'll find this definitely not evil NPC, and holy shit, finally, the wall climb ability. From then on, you enter the Blasted Steps. You ascend through the sandstorm, up the jagged cliffs and broken pillars, past the judges that are stationed here to judge pilgrims as they attempt to reach the Citadel. But finally, you make it to the top, only to be met with a giant door that has some bells on it. The pilgrims here tell you that you need to ring all of the giant bells in the lower parts of Farloom and play some music. If you're like me, and you got here before you did all of that, then you gotta go back and ring all of the remaining bells. But either way, once you have them all, you play your needle in and open the door. Soon after, you're met with this hulking mass of armor that proceeds to immediately fucking murder your homies that you were just in song with. This is the last judge, the last form of judgment cast on any pilgrim that reaches the Citadel's gate. Only history knows how many she's killed in this very room. Honestly, this boss is pretty cool, even though the noises she makes sound like rap ad-libs. You probably got fucked by this boss a couple times. Oh, hey Sherma. But anyway, once you defeat her, she fucking explodes, so don't stand near her, and then the gate opens. You head on inside and try to use the elevator to ascend, but of course it breaks and you plummet into the deepest parts of the Citadel, the underworks, filled with grinding gears, destruction, steam, and bugs working in horrible conditions. But this is only the tip of the iceberg for the Citadel's shadowy business. One of the most sad NPCs I found along my journey was this bug named Loam. The way he talks about what's above in the Citadel and how he sees it is probably an accurate representation of most of the bugs here. He says the Citadel is always watching, and he must work hard for his chance to be brought there, but he's constantly barely able to breathe and never takes breaks, literally working himself to death. Passing all the spinning fan blades and enthralled workers, you eventually make it out of the underworks and into the actual Citadel. And when crossing a bridge to enter it, you meet Lace again. She says Hornet can't fathom the power that waits above, her who would snuff that hope with barely a glance. Hornet knows the origin of their power, and says it's clear to her, this land's grandeur, the devotion of its bugs, and the curse that befalls them. Their kingdom is in the thrall of a creature beyond bug. Lace laughs and mocks you, to which you reply that experience tells you that even gods can fall. Lace disappears again, shooting off into the distance before What the fuck was that? You hear a loud scream, the ground shakes, and Silk shoots out of you, resurrecting fallen Citadel folk to attack you. Fighting off the enthralled bugs of the Citadel and slapping Grindel, you eventually make it to the top level of this district and are faced with the Cogwork Dancers, one of my favorite fight designs personally. Once you beat them, the room reveals an elevator and some statues that relay a message. From here, they talk about the different groups of the Citadel. The Architects are the ones who are at the core of the Citadel, their walls, their floors, and its voice. The Keepers are in the vaults and guard their history, prayers, and secrets. And lastly, the Conductors stay in their gleaming towers, guiding the land to greatness. Every division of the Citadel has their own special song, and in order to ascend through to the very top to complete your pilgrimage, you have to learn the 3-part song. The rest of the Citadel is now opened up, and with it, a new settlement has as well. This is the first shrine, and once you ring the giant bell inside, this little guy outside starts yapping at you because he was trying to sleep. Apparently Bro is the caretaker, and he says the bell is like a beacon for the pilgrims, letting them know it's safe so they can actually come here. He expresses to Hornet how much of a grand, gilded lie the whole place is. Now, you can find the Citadel's songs in almost any order as long as you have a certain ability, and that ability is found in the Underworks. Said ability is a grapple, and my personal favorite of the many, now allowing you to grapple onto these rings so you can access a lot more places, including this pseudo Path of Pain area called Mount Fae. Oh, hold on, wrong game. Before you can get here though, you have to go through this place called the Slab, which is where sinful bugs go, or I guess anyone they want to throw in jail. Because let's be honest, the Citadel's morals are definitely twisted. You can either come here willingly, or you could get fucking kidnapped by this cage dude in Greymoor like I did, where they strip you down, taking your clothes and weapons. God damn it, I want my lawyer. You make your way through the prison and find this fucker dancing around the room with his friends in your clothes, pretending to be you. So you do what any reasonable person would do and snap his neck. If you head to the mountain though, once you make it to the top after a shit ton of parkour, this huge bird thing comes down and gives you a Red Bull, so you can double jump now. Yes! Anyway, with all the movement you could possibly want, it's about time we begin collecting the different songs of the Citadel. If you choose to go to the high halls first, you'll be met with a shit ton of spikes and some trap rooms where you have to fight a lot of these annoying Citadel mobs. But once you do, you meet the current and last conductor of the Citadel. Conductor Balador is regretful that the Citadel has fallen so far. After he took the mantle of being a conductor, he realized he had no idea how much responsibility it would involve. Over the years, he grew sick to the point to where he can't even lift himself out of bed. The only thing keeping him alive was this silk spool at his bedside. He apologizes to Hornet, unable to offer any clarity and answers about the kingdom, but offers his melody. Another melody you have to find would be from the Architects. Like Conductor Balador, you can actually find one in the Underworks. This is the 12th Architect, and it says it's not an enemy. It's just in their nature to create things. They don't really have a choice. It confusingly asks if Hornet is a weave type, a first child that was known to be extinct. When Hornet asks it to make something for her, it agrees and says, as directive commands from Farloom's first children, it accepts. The Architect would now serve you, just like the Forge Daughter does, and it has some pretty interesting tools at its selection. It tells you where the Architect's song is and how they designed a giant machine that would play it. So you make your way through a series of clockwork enemies and spinning cog parkour to get to it. Once you do, you gotta do this puzzle, lining up music notes on columns, and then these statues with gramophones on them play the melody for you. With 2 down, the only one left would be the Vault Keeper's melody. And to find that, we have to head to the Whispering Vaults and do a bunch of these mini puzzles where we slap some boxes around to open up spaces, before fighting this weird dude that wants to put on a grand performance in anticipation for the world to meet its demise from the Silken Curse. A flashy fellow he is. While you spend some time in the Whispering Vaults, you'll meet Vault Keeper Cardinius. He seems hostile towards Hornet, yet doesn't attack. He calls her Weaver Spawn, like it's a horrible thing, and says her vicious kind should all be dead. He collects these psalm cylinders that you can find around the Citadel, each holding a recording of sound he can play for you on the gramophone next to him. He's pretty hesitant to tell you about their melody, but after pressing him a bit, the Vault Keeper finally gives in and tells you it's with their pontiff in the lower levels of the vault. Making your way there, you find the dead pontiff of the Vault Keepers, laying on a bed of cylinders. And with him, you find, of course, the sacred cylinder. You give it to Cardinius, and he plays it for you on his gramophone. And with that, you've collected all of the Citadel's melodies, which means it's finally time to reach the top of the Citadel. Before a single word can be exchanged between you two, your weapons clash together, but after fighting her with all your might, Lace is no match for you.
Buenera.
Evanestina. Dorokgiba. Artistia. Nera nera.
You bind her power and go into another one of these weird dream memories instead of a cocoon. We see fragments of dialogue on the screen as you climb up. You ascend into the cradle. On your way, you discover a plethora of cages, exactly like the one that you were captured with. On them, they talk about the weavers that were once captured in each one, how much weaver blood they had in them, and where they were captured. As you close in on the top of the cradle, you hear a heartbeat. It echoes through the massive tunnels and gets louder, almost deafening. And at last, you see it, the giant beating cocoon in the far reaches of the room. Once you get to the top, you can finally challenge her. This is the god behind the haunting of Farloom. And before we talk about the endings to the game, allow me to clear up a bunch of the story for you so we can really understand what's going on here. Farloom wasn't always in this state. It used to be normal before the dominion of Grandmother Silk, and it was ruled by the major powers currently there. Crust King Khan and Coral Warriors, Nyleth and her plant guys, Scar Singer Carmelita with her red ant hunters, and most importantly, the Citadel of Song. This society flourished, and a majority of its bugs seeked to climb to the top of the Citadel, believing that they were the chosen. But at some point during Farloom's history, Grandmother Silk showed up, probably similar to the Pale King arriving in Hollownest. She was the primary source of silk, and she turned regular spiders into these beings called the Weavers. She saw them as her daughters and called them divine. Over time, they mastered the art of silk, and different versions of it manifested, like the creation of magic runes, such as the ones used on the cages, and even using their thread for stringed instruments that were very special. It seems as if when the silk is used as an instrument, it could transcend even time. As in-game, we're able to see past visions of some events in the right places. Additionally, most bugs uncontrollably sing their thoughts when it's played near them. Over time, Farloom became increasingly obsessed with this deity, the Weavers, and the divine silk. Farloom began worshipping their new god at the top of the Citadel, and she had the ability to sense things in the beings she was more or less tied to, like the Weavers. They created the White Ward and began torturously stuffing silk into bugs' shells because it would prolong their life. This practice would see an impact on the bugs of Farloom that would last literal generations, passed down genetically. Over these generations, since the bugs of the kingdom had silk in them, whether in their DNA or put inside them through other means, Grandmother Silk was able to effortlessly enthrall the bugs of Farloom to carry out her will. This whole event has multiple names, but the one I see most commonly is the Haunting of Thread, and it would prove to curse their kingdom for decades. In time, the Weavers would flee Farloom to other places in the world, one of them being Hollownest. The text we see in the rune harps are some of the most telling clues we have in the game about the Weavers and how they felt during these times. They would say things like, "Flee, sisters, flee until your strength exhausts. So far you may escape at last her silken sight. To start anew, to sustain, free of web, and service eternal." The first Weaver to speak up about this whole thing and renounce these ideologies was a Weaver tucked deeply in a hidden spot in the slab. She was chained and kept in a special vessel. This Weaver was likely the one that discovered rune weaving, the creation of the silk seals we see around the kingdom that we eventually used against her to keep her captured since her chains are covered in them. They also created these hidden nests around Farloom, only being accessed by an instrument of their own silk for their hiding. When some of the Weavers arrived in Hollownest, the time frame isn't exactly clear, but the Weavers had enough time to establish themselves and their own history in Deep Nest before Hornet was born to Herrah and the Pale King. And at some point, like I mentioned earlier in the video, the Weavers left Deep Nest and went back to Farloom. It's previously thought that it was because the infection broke out, but was it really? Is it possible that they were hunted and brought back by the envoys of Grandmother Silk? Just food for thought. Word spread around Farloom about the special child that was born. And Grandmother Silk, of course, knew this since she could sense the thoughts of bugs she enthralled, and so she began her own search for the child. Sending her envoys with their rune-locked cages to distant lands, Grandmother Silk searched for any last Weaver that could possibly be that special child. There are a few reasons to believe why she wanted to bring this child back to Farloom, but I think the most plausible explanation is that since the Weavers were not pure divine beings like herself, she thought that it was the reason they ended up turning their back on her. She outlawed the Weavers of Farloom and desired a pure daughter, a daughter born of pale origin, with that same will to rule a kingdom, like many of the pale beings have. She wanted a daughter that wouldn't betray her. This happened probably around the time that Hornet was still a baby, while the Weavers were slowly dying out, because the NPCs all say the Weavers are long dead by the time that she shows up. On this rune harp, we see the final words of the Weavers, choosing that they would rather die out than live in eternal servitude of their silk for the Citadel and their mother. Some of the Weavers grew tired of waiting for the distant child, and the ones in the nest under Bone Bottom tried to create their own. They tried to fake divinity, as they called it, and it became this being named Ava. She's a being born of thread, similar to lace, but was a failed wish, causing her to live inside of this iron vessel forever. She does have one special ability to peer into a bug's soul imprint, or in other words, their crest, and at some point she asks you to free her. She wants to become a part of you so you can bind her, which is a pretty wholesome scene. But anyway, back at the start of the game, it's after Hornet grows up that she's captured by Grandmother Silk's envoys and brought back to Farloom. Now, I will say that some of the stuff isn't perfectly clear and more or less is up to interpretation, but it's my thoughts on the story after playing and closely analyzing as much as I could. With the story of Farloom now explained, let's get into the endings. If you decide to simply slay Grandmother Silk atop the cradle, once she's down, Hornet jumps on her head, slowly but surely binding the unfathomable amount of power the Monarch holds into herself. We see our Silk Spool and health bar increase to match that of a god before it throws us into a cutscene. Silk rains down on the kingdom of Farloom from atop the Citadel, perhaps a curse even stronger than the one that was already present. Then we see Hornet inside of her new cocoon, which means the new Weaver Queen of Farloom is born. Remember that NPC that I said definitely wasn't evil? Well, I was surprised that you didn't see it coming. She's evil. After you do her initial quest, you can find this item in Bile Water, called the Twisted Bud. Basically, it looks like a baby version of her species, and you can give it to her and trigger a wish from her. When you accept, she fucking latches herself onto you and you pass out. Waking up in this strange place, covered in the same sorts of roots her house had, you find out you're now cursed and can't use any abilities, including your heal, or else you'll get flung into the air and stunned for a second. And to add insult to injury, if you want to get this ending, you have to defeat Grandmother Silk in this state. Once you do, the two of you are entangled together for probably eternity, and eventually born into something new, I'm guessing. Maybe we'll find out in the DLC. Now here is where we get to the bread and butter of the endings, and the one that the community is probably going to call the true ending. To trigger this, you first need to complete all the wishes on the wish boards and move the flea caravan to its final place, or at least some variation of it, since the game came out recently and it's not perfectly known yet. But once you trigger it, you get a new wish from the caretaker in the first shrine. He wants to meet with you. Once you reach him, he asks if you're ready to take her place up there. Hornet says as much as she may wish for that, since dominance is in her blood, another part of her wants to see the bugs of the kingdom unshackled from their pale chains. He then explains how you can do just that. You need to seek out his family, who has practice in certain arts. Finding all of them and retrieving their souls would give enough power in order to quell a god. He also says you need an old weaver weapon. So one by one, you seek his family members. The chapel maid from the start of the game, this bell hermit under Bellheart, and this annoying ass boss you have to kill to get the last soul of the family. I mean, honestly, why is the bench so far? And why does this goddamn debuff make it so you can't heal? And why do I need to fight a billion mobs before the boss every fucking time? The last thing you need is the old weaver weapon, which you can find in a secret section of the weaver nest under Bone Bottom. Once you have all the stuff, you head back to the caretaker, and the two of you craft the trap, meeting him later next to Grandmother Silk's cocoon. He tells you that once she's subdued, all you need to do is play your needle in, and it'll trigger the trap. So you fight her again, and, well, I'll just let you watch this one. Yeah, so once Lace sacrifices herself to save you and Grandmother Silk is plunged into the abyss, the game ends. Or does it? If you check your save file, it's all spooky, and when you open it, Yeah, I don't think anyone saw this coming. A secret third act? I mean, what else could you ask for? You wake up at the bottom of the cradle where you last fought Lace. You head through the ruins of the Underworks, fighting off the now void-afflicted bugs of the Citadel, but shortly after, you pass out. You wake up next to Herrah, and she explains what's going on, how the giant void tendrils sprung from below and started destroying everything. Hornet knew who she had to see. This was not the result she expected. On your way to the Bell Station, you fight the Bell Eater, since it's literally overrun the station, but before you can deal the final blow, Doggo comes to the rescue, and she brought her babies. Oh my god, they're so cute. And with them, you now have a Needlin song that lets you fast travel to the nearest Bell Station. Anyway, you head to the ruined chapel and find the now revealed to be Snail Shamans hiding away. Snail Shamans in the Hollow Knight world are known to be of the void, worshipping it and wishing for it to consume everything. Hornet calls them cowards, and she suspects Grandmother Silk is clinging onto Farloom, preventing her death to save Lace. Hornet demands they help her fix it, but she says she's going to assess the situation first, and she's going to have to talk to the Forge daughter. You see, they have this old diving bell in the deep docks, which is the only way you could realistically go down to the void. So you ask the Forge daughter's assistant to handle the controls for you, and he sends you down. Of course it breaks, and you have no way back now, fighting through the void and going down to the ocean at the bottom. Hornet kneels down and asks the Monarch, not expecting a response, if she would destroy her kingdom just to spare Lace. Lace appears and says her mother can thrash all she wants, but she knows it was her pathetic child that dealt the mortal wound. She also says Hornet should just accept it and let her destroy the kingdom. Hornet says she can't, as she's already stood a sentinel for a dying land, and she won't do it again. She can't dive into the void in this state, but she has an idea. Saying goodbye to Lace momentarily and doing insane parkour while avoiding lava back up to the deep docks, you head back to the Snail Shamans and you tell them your plan. If Hornet can get Everbloom, one of those pale, delicate flowers, she could then repel the void and dive into it to kill the Monarch so she doesn't destroy Farloom. These flowers don't grow here, and since they wouldn't be at their full strength, since she'd be taking them from their native land, the only way Hornet can get one is taking one from her memories. The Snail Shamans are hesitant at first and have to discuss, but after they do, they tell her it's possible. Although it would take an enormous amount of power to dive into a weaver's memories like that. They task you with visiting the old powers of Farloom, and give you a song you can play to access their memories to claim their hearts in their strongest forms, before the haunting of the thread. It doesn't matter what order you get them in, but if you choose to go to the Crust King Khan's tower first, you make your way up to the sands of Karak and find his body, alongside the army that stayed loyal and by his side until the very end. You fight your way through his troops before facing him, claiming the first heart. The next one belongs to Nyleth, and a statue of her likeness resides in Shellwood. But before you can access it, you have to fight its guardian, Seth. Once you beat him and fight Nyleth in her nest of thorns, you claim the second heart. The last one belongs to that of the Scar in Hunter's March. Heading deep into the zone, you eventually find an old, sad version of the once great Scar singer Carmelita. She expresses how far she's fallen, but Hornet says that if she could just try to remember her past, Hornet could save the kingdom from its gruesome fate. Entering her memory, you see her in all her glory, singing to her colony while they throw themselves at you one by one, until lastly, she jumps into the arena. Dodging her deadly bone spikes and swift blades, you defeat her, claiming the last heart needed to save Farloom. Leaving the cold body of the once great Scar singer behind, Hornet wouldn't let her sacrifice be in vain. Once you make it back to the Snail Shamans, you give them all the hearts, and they perform their ritual on you, allowing you to dive into Hornet's memories. You walk through the dreamlike sequence as you can hear a heartbeat. The first memory is baby Hornet sitting with a bunch of weavers as they ask her to show them her silk skills to prove herself more weaver than worm. The second memory is her as a baby again, talking to her mom somewhere at Deep Nest.
Faria dalla.
Then we see Hornet training with her master in the Hollow Nest Hive, and the words she exchanges with him. I want to say this probably confirms why her weapon is made of hive steel, and why her name is Hornet. I always thought it was odd she was named that since she was a spider. The next memory is Hornet talking to the White Lady, and this would be the most important of them all.
Merman. Cadestre. Fadastama.
Yakura. Anero.
With the Everbloom at its full strength now in hand, and its pale light repelling the void, the snail shamans are gone, with only their shells remaining. After you head back to the diving belt, you find out the assistant fixed it while you were gone, so it should be fully functional now. You make your way back into the void once more, and speak with Lace one final time before plunging into the abyss. Lace tells her everything is inevitable, and she should just accept it once again. Hornet tells her that she will always be a daughter of Hollownest, and the void under all things, she will fear no longer. Once again, not even a word can be exchanged before the sisters exchange blows. The now void-corrupted Lace spawning monstrosities until she gets desperate, sending giant crashing void waves at Hornet, but it's not enough.
Kestra.
With the Monarch consumed by the void, Farloom and Lace are saved. I honestly could not think of a more perfect ending for this game. But I swear to God, if Expedition or Silksong does not get Game of the Year, I'm gonna Hello? I can't seem to find the last tag anywhere. At any rate, thank you for joining me on this journey. Was there anything I missed? Any questions or theories you have? Leave them in the comments below. If you like this video, click the subscribe button, as it really helps us keep making these videos even better. Also, big thanks to my YouTube members and patrons right here. Now, where's that damn stag? I hear him. He's around here somewhere. Can you click the little bell icon beneath the video so I can find this dude? Please, do it. It's dark and scary. If you don't do it, I'm gonna find you. Okay, bye.